The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
Hello everyone, producer Pat here, hosting today's Friday bonus show once again, and today I'm going to be taking your questions. I posted on the subreddit a few days ago that I was going to be doing this, and I got some pretty good responses, maybe about 40 questions or so. So without further ado, let us jump right into the questions. Have you considered rolling bigger political stories into the bonus show? Right now, as a subscriber, I don't feel like there's much value to the bonus show. Wow. As it generally focuses on very minor topics or just miscellaneous conversation. Yeah, I mean, like most of the day, we're prepping and filming and editing the regular show. So generally, that's where most of our attention is, David and I. By the time we get around to doing the bonus show, it's more chill, it's more relaxed. We want to just make sure it's kind of stays not like overly prepared or anything, and then we kind of get that banter feel going. So if you want to take a look at some like the deeper dive, long form investigation into political topics that we've done, you can check out the playlist that we have on YouTube called Deeper Dives, and we have videos on all sorts of topics. We have them on political correctness and what else, like climate, socialism, voting systems, like a whole bunch of things, and they're all like 15, 20-minute videos. So I'd encourage you to check those out. Do you believe that there is a cult-like following behind candidates like Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, and Tulsi Gabbard? Do you think their supporters as unwavering as the support of Trump is? No, not quite to that level anyway. I think that there really is a cult-like following around Trump. His supporters really just like his personality. They view him as tough and entertaining, and that's why they support him for the most part, and that's why it doesn't matter when he decides to flip 180 degrees on abortion or war in the Middle East. Like, they just don't care. Whereas Bernie Sanders, if he was to change his mind on free college and Medicare for all tomorrow, I wouldn't support him anymore. I don't think a lot of people would support him either. I don't think he has that same cult-like personality. Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, maybe they have some cult-like following in a sense. Like they definitely have their loyal supporters anyway. But I don't think it reaches the level of Trump. What was the transition like taking over for Lewis? It was interesting because Lewis and I didn't actually work at the same time. There was about a 3 or 4 week period in between when Lewis stopped working and I started working. So David had to train me, and it was not a very easy month or so here at the show because we had like our normal responsibilities, and then David had to teach me everything on top of it. So that was a lot of work. Who would win in an arm wrestling match between you and David? Well, I think I would first jab David in the spot where his appendix used to be, and then I wouldn't have much of a hard time. I think I would win. What awards will this magnificent new Friday bonus show get? Yeah, so when I posted the AMA, I said that I am the new host of the future award-winning bonus show. I don't know. I'm going to probably have to make up my own award show and then give myself an award. The real question is, will there be other awards given? Like, will maybe David get an award? Will producer Max get an award? Producer Noah? Maybe. We'll see. Depends. Hi, Pat. I know that David has a background in business economics, but do you know if he studied something like rhetoric, formal logic as well? I ask because his interviews are notably more professional than I see on mainstream media. I'm not totally sure about that. I know he has an undergraduate degree in economics and then master's in like economics with a concentration in like personal finance or something like that. But no, I don't. Maybe he's taking classes in them, but I don't think he's majored or anything like that. If your studio was a game of Clue and you killed David, what room and weapon would you use? Oh, geez. I mean, I would probably want some sort of like poetic justice. So maybe like a Keurig would be the weapon. And I don't know, like a janitor's closet. That'd be probably fine. What did you do with former producer Lewis's body? Wow, these are just getting dark, these questions. I don't know how to deal with this. Lewis is still alive and well. I don't think he ever moved down south, but I think he's still doing okay. I didn't kill him. Would you please consider hosting future shows when Pakman is absent? I feel like the talent should come from in-house, and I think that you have the makings of a strong host. Yeah, I mean, that would be cool. I'd like to start maybe by doing it like as a one-off thing. Like if David is traveling in the middle of the week, maybe I could fill in on a Tuesday, and if that goes well, maybe I could fill in back-to-back days some other time. We'll see how that goes. But I think hosting the Friday bonus show will maybe better prepare me for doing that in the future. Would you do a 30-second segment in Spanish, like the weather in Buenos Aires, the traffic in Miami, breaking news from Spain? I don't know if you want me to do the segment or if you want David to do the segment, because certainly his Spanish is better than mine. But yeah, I don't know. Like, would people be interested in that? Because like, even if you are a Spanish speaker, why would you want to hear like all different things like this? Like, wouldn't you want to hear the weather and traffic and breaking news in one location? I don't know. I don't know if it would be that entertaining of content or if it would be that valuable. What's something you and David strongly disagree on politically? We're pretty lined up. Like, we both took the political compass test, and I think it came out that I was a little bit, just a tiny bit more conservative and a tiny bit more authoritarian than he is, but not by much. So I'd have to think more about that. I mean, certainly like the animal welfare, veganism stuff, we disagree on, but it's not like David's a big meat eater or anything like that. Now that you've tasted the sweet waters of hosting the show, how long does David have until you engage in a coup? Probably not that long. Probably not that long. I think that the David Pakman Show probably does need a change at host. We don't need to change the name of the show. I think there's a lot of legacy value in the name, The David Pakman Show, so I wouldn't be in favor of changing the name. And David can still run the business. I'm not saying he has to leave the company or anything like that. He can still, be executive producer and take on most of the roles that he's currently taking on. But I think at some point we're going to have to change the host. What was it like to eat David's appendix? Yes, we're getting back to the dark stuff here. I wish I seasoned it better. Keep your comedy dial down and your substantive talk dial up. Well, how am I supposed to keep the comedy dial down when I'm getting questions like this? I mean, come on. Hi, Pat. You do great work. Keep it up. Thank you. Do you have pants on while filming the bonus show? You always appear from waist up, so I'm getting suspicious. Yeah, I do have pants on, not because I need to for the camera. Like, the camera's not going to shoot the waist down, but we do have a dress code here at the show, and it's not a strict dress code, but I think that pants have to be on, or at least shorts, 100% of the time that you're working here. And I've tried disputing it in the past, but Human Resources has been very strict with that rule. Is David as hot as he looks on camera? No, not really, because when we're filming, David has these like bright lights on him, and I think that tends to raise his body temperature up a little bit. But then once we're done filming the show for the day, he comes out of the studio, lights are off, and he goes back to a normal body temperature. So not as hot as on camera. What's the biggest thing you disagree with David on? I see you guys very much on the same wavelength all the time. Yeah, like, people say this all the time, like, I wish Pat disagreed with David more. It's like, I can only give my honest opinion, and if it just turns out that we are lined up that much politically, either from, sharing ideas for so long, or just that we happen to just be both social democrats or whatever, that's just what it is, and I'll voice my disagreements whenever I have them. If they're minor, then they're minor, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't know. Offhand, I can't think of any major political issues where we have a significant disagreement. Hi, Pat. Do you think like you looked like this guy in this Christian video? Let's
Toys
see the
on the
video.
market have a cultic influence, and these are the most popular.
Okay.
Gramming. Hosted by...
It's just some dude. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Why does Warren appeal to so many Clinton Democrats? Her policies are further to the left than either Hillary or Obama, so the answer can't be ideology. Yeah, I mean, you have to remember that most people don't vote primarily based on policy. They're looking at who they can trust, who they like on a personal level as a candidate. Identity plays a role for some, principles, track record, values, all that stuff. So, I mean, I know that we follow politics on a day-to-day basis, so we think that how can policy not be first and foremost? But for other people, it's just not at the top of their list. Do you still drink Keurig? I actually don't. What I do now, and this may be offensive to some, I get these like big gallon jugs of iced coffee at the beginning of the week, and then that lasts me through the week. So that's what I've been doing. How do you deal with getting required nutrients and stuff while being vegan? Do you take supplements? I take B12 because that's the only nutrient you can't get as a vegan on your own. But I guess if you have fortified foods, you can, which I do. But I also have these big like meal replacer shakes a couple times a day, and those have everything you need, all the vitamins and nutrients, so I'm not worried about not getting enough. Any chance you can host a debate between two people who support different voting systems? I suppose you'd have, I don't know why I would do it. I think David would do it, but we don't we tried hosting a debate a couple years ago, I remember, and it just fell apart. It's kind of hard to coordinate that sort of thing. You have to have people who are both knowledgeable on the topic and willing to debate and willing to be at the same place at the same time, in the same city too. So like, there's just so many factors that make it a little bit hard. Like we were gonna have one on circumcision a while ago, and I remember it just fell apart because once both parties realized it was a debate, they just weren't into it anymore. How tall are you? I'm 6'2", maybe 6'3" on a good day. Maybe 6'3" on a good day. If you could host a Democratic primary debate, how would you format it and what questions would you ask? I would format it somewhat similarly to like how the mainstream channels have been doing, but my questions would be totally different. So I think at the last debate, they had the first 30 minutes to 45 minutes on the topic of healthcare. That's important. Like, we want to spend a good amount of time talking about healthcare, and it's the number one issue in the country right now. So that makes sense to have a good chunk of the debate be on healthcare. But my questions would be better. It wouldn't just over and over be how you're going to pay for it. It would actually be much more substantive than that. And then after healthcare, get into other domestic issues, foreign policy, social issues. It's really not so much the structure of the debate that I have a problem with, given that we're going to have that many candidates on stage and we're going to have it as a one-night event. It's really not like the amount of time that we're spending on each topic as much as it is the questions that are bad. How do you deal with David's ignorance on veganism? I don't know. I don't know how I deal with it. I just whenever we talk about veganism, it's like typically on the bonus show, so you get to see how I deal with it in real time. I would like to see some content on various theory, maybe a series taking a look at social democracy versus socialist versus communism, something educational along those lines. Yeah, that would be a good idea to talk about maybe why I'm a social democrat, not a socialist or a communist, and kind of go through the differences. What do you think Representative Cummings' death will do for politics in the next few months? Not too much. Like, I'd like to say it would bring us all together, and that it would change things on Capitol Hill, but I don't think it will do that. I think that everything will continue as it was going. Impeachment inquiry will still go. The investigations and the testimonies in front of the committee that Cummings headed will continue. Have you got David to go vegan yet? So many questions on this. No, I haven't. He does the Mediterranean diet, which is like maybe 80% of the way to veganism, although he has cheese. And he doesn't have that much red meat, so I don't know. He's not going to be the first person I go after and trying to change their diet. What is your go-to submission in BJJ, and how do you try to set it up? I usually I think I usually go for like shoulder locks, like Americanas and Kimuras. A lot of other submissions I have a tough time getting to work. From the guard, I like to shoot a triangle, but if that fails, then I'm stuck in side control and I feel bad. So. Shoulder locks are usually my go-to, I would say. I'm still kind of new at it. Like, I've been doing it for like maybe a year, so I'm still getting crushed a lot of the time. Hey, Pat, don't be afraid to try new stuff until you find your thing. Who would win a wrestling match, you or David? Well, I just said I do grappling, so I think I would win. I find you to be refreshing. David will mention his family and his upbringing. Basically, they want me to talk about my family and my childhood. Yeah, I'm open to doing that. It's the sort of thing that I kind of do in passing, like as is necessary, like as is whenever it's related to whatever topic we're discussing. But yeah, it's interesting because like most of my family members are not as on the left as I am. My parents are much more conservative. I think one of them voted for Trump in 2016. But luckily, like, they can still appreciate the work that I do, and they like checking out the channel, and they value what I have to say. So like, everything's still like on a respectful level, but for whatever reason, I just can't get through to them on politics. What is your workout routine? How many calories do you eat in a day? I go to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week, mostly strength training stuff. I do like a typical bro split. Try to work out each body part twice a week. I find that works well for me because I recover quite fast. And then on top of that, I do jiu-jitsu 3 or 4 times a week, and then every now and then I'll run, but I'm not that into running, so I try not to do it that much. How many calories do you eat in a day? Like 4,000 or 5,000, something like that. Is the entire David Pakman thing a distraction? Yeah, it's all a distraction. I've suggested this a few times, but now that you're actually hosting, it's more plausible than ever. For April Fools, please do a Pat Ford show instead of a David Pakman show on your channel. Yeah, like, we try to do something different every year for April Fools. Like, this year we did we did a play on the Sam Cedar set design controversy because like that was huge in the news. So we did that this year. Maybe next year we'll do something like this, or we'll have David and me switch spots. So like he'll be hosting the show from here, and then maybe he'll throw to me on the bonus show, and I'll be at his fancy set. We can do something like that. Please, God, stop uploading videos with awkward, slightly increased contrast photos of David on the thumbnail. All right, I'll have to take that up with producer Noah. Hey, producer Pat. Oh, this is the last question. Congratulations on your new Friday assignment. I prefer Bernie Sanders for one singular reason. I love his consistency, sincerity, and honesty. His credibility factors through the roof. The downside of his candidate is the word socialism. Yes, so we've been talking for a long time about how Bernie Sanders has to stop calling himself a democratic socialist. I don't know, maybe he has. I mean, I haven't heard him call himself that in a long time, but certainly everyone just runs with the title of socialist now. I mean, there's just no getting away from it at this point because he's been calling himself one for his entire career. Maybe at one point he was actually a democratic socialist, but if you look at his policy positions, they look like one of a social democrat. I'm pretty sure Bernie is a social democrat. He should be calling himself that instead of a democratic socialist because it does more harm than good, especially with like the older generation. Like I think most millennials are fine with the term socialist. I think it even polls better than the word capitalist among millennials, but I don't think you're going to be able to pick up the votes that you need from boomers and from the silent generation calling yourself a socialist. That's true. All right, so that was the Ask Me Anything. Thanks, everyone, for submitting your questions. I had a good time going through them and reading them all, answering them all. Next week, we'll be back at it. We'll be back doing something else, and I look forward to seeing you then.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.